Sometimes life doesn't collapse because of one big mistake. Sometimes life changes because of a very small decision, one that feels completely harmless in the moment. So small that years later you barely remember when you even made it. For Daniel Carter, that decision was just $5,000. Not $50,000, not $100,000, just $5,000. But the strange thing was, that tiny decision followed him for the next 10 years, slowly draining his energy, quietly reducing his confidence, and little by little, it ended up shaping and almost ruining his entire 30s. Not in one dramatic moment, but slowly, piece by piece. And the strangest part? At the time, Daniel was completely convinced that he had made the right decision. Daniel Carter was not a reckless person. He wasn't irresponsible either. If you asked any of his friends, most of them would say the same thing. Daniel plays it safe. He grew up in a middle-class family in Ohio. No extreme luxury, no major struggles either, just a normal life. His parents followed two simple rules: work hard and avoid unnecessary risks. Daniel followed those rules almost perfectly. He studied business in college. After graduating, he got a stable job in marketing. By the age of 27, his life looked pretty solid. A small apartment, a reliable car, a decent salary. Nothing glamorous, but also very little stress. And honestly, Daniel liked it that way. Predictable, safe, controlled. But then one evening arrived when a simple conversation quietly changed everything. It was a Friday night. Daniel was sitting in a small bar with his college friend Ryan. Ryan was the complete opposite of Daniel. Restless, ambitious, always chasing the next big idea. That night, Ryan leaned forward and said, "Listen, I'm starting something." Daniel smiled slightly. Ryan was always starting something. "What kind of thing?" Daniel asked. Ryan opened his laptop. On the screen was a rough prototype of a digital product, a small online platform. It wasn't revolutionary, but it was interesting. Ryan explained the idea with contagious excitement. Then he looked directly at Daniel and said, "I just need a little starting capital." Daniel already knew what was coming. "How much?" Ryan paused for a second. $5,000. Daniel leaned back in his chair. $5,000 wasn't a tiny amount, but it wasn't life-changing either. Ryan quickly added, "You'll be an early partner. If this works, you'll regret missing it." Daniel stared at the screen. Inside his mind, calculations started running instantly. What if it fails? What if Ryan loses everything? What if this becomes just another unfinished idea? But another voice quietly appeared in his head. What if it works? Ryan sat silently, waiting. Finally, Daniel slowly shook his head. "I can't." Ryan raised an eyebrow. "It's just $5,000. Daniel replied quietly, "Exactly." Ryan sighed. "You're always scared of even small risks." Daniel forced a laugh. "I call it being responsible." The conversation moved on, but one sentence Ryan said that night stayed in Daniel's mind. Still, Daniel felt relieved. He had made the safe decision. Or at least, that's what it felt like at the time. Months passed. Daniel's life continued exactly the same. Same job, same routine, same quiet stability. Then one day, while scrolling through his phone, Daniel saw Ryan's name on social media. Ryan had launched the platform. Out of curiosity, Daniel opened a website. And surprisingly, it looked good. Daniel smiled a little. Good for him. Then he closed the tab and went back to work. But over the next year, something unexpected started happening. Ryan's project didn't disappear. Instead, it slowly started growing. Then one day, Daniel opened his phone and saw a headline. Ryan's startup had just received its first major investment. Daniel felt a strange emotion. Not anger, not jealousy, just an uncomfortable thought. What if I had said yes? But he quickly reassured himself. Most startups fail. This one probably will too. But 2 years later, the opposite happened. Ryan bought his first house. 3 years later, the company expanded internationally. And by the time Daniel turned 34, Ryan sold the company for millions. The internet called him a success story. Investors called him a visionary. And Daniel called it something else, a missed moment. At first, Daniel told himself it didn't really matter. After all, his life was still stable, predictable, safe. But something inside him had quietly changed. Every time he saw someone take a risk, that memory returned. That bar, Ryan's laptop on the table, Ryan saying, "It's just 5,000," and Daniel replying, "I can't." The money wasn't the real problem. $5,000 wouldn't have instantly changed his life. But the psychology of that decision changed something deeper. After that moment, Daniel became even more cautious, more risk-averse. He avoided opportunities, rejected ideas, and years went by like this. He stayed in the same job, not because he loved it, but because it felt safe. But safety has a strange problem. Slowly, it becomes a cage. By the age of 37, Daniel was still working in the same office, same desk, same routine. You could almost predict his entire week. Monday meetings, Wednesday reports, Friday quiet dinners. Technically, nothing in his life was wrong, but nothing was growing either. And sometimes, late at night, a quiet question would return to his mind. What if that small decision changed everything? Daniel's turning point didn't come from a dramatic crisis. It came from a quiet moment. One random Sunday afternoon, Daniel was cleaning his apartment. While sorting through some old boxes, he found a notebook from his 20s. Inside were his old ideas, business plans, dreams, goals, all the things he once wanted to try. Daniel sat on the floor and started flipping through the pages. Then he stopped on one page. At the top, it said, "Things I will try before I turned 35. Under it were 6 ideas. Daniel hadn't tried a single one. He slowly closed the notebook and sat there quietly. Then, a painful realization hit him. Ryan's success hadn't ruined his 30s. That $5,000 decision hadn't ruined them either. The real thing that damaged his 30s was fear. The belief that every decision must be perfectly safe, perfectly predictable, perfectly controlled. But life doesn't work that way. Growth almost never happens inside comfort zones. And sometimes the real risk isn't losing money. The real risk is losing time. A few weeks later, Daniel made a small decision, but it was an important one. He enrolled in an online course about digital business. Not a huge move, not a dramatic life change, just a small step. The kind of step he used to avoid. And for the first time in years, Daniel felt something different. Not certainty, not security, but movement. Because there is a simple truth about life. Most people believe big mistakes destroy their future. But in reality, it's the small, safe decisions that slowly shape it. The moments when we say, maybe later, I'll wait. That seems risky. I'm not ready yet. And then years pass. Opportunities disappear. And one day, we look back and realize an uncomfortable truth. The biggest losses in life are rarely the money we lost. They're the chances we never took. So if you ever face a moment like Daniel did, a small decision, a small risk, a small opportunity, remember something important. Sometimes the real question isn't what if I lose? Sometimes the real question is, what if this moment never comes again? Because a small decision can stay with you for the next 10 years, just like it did with Daniel. If you've ever missed an opportunity in your life and still think about it sometimes, share your experience in the comments. Your story might help someone else make a better decision today. And if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more powerful life stories like this. Also, share this video with a friend who might be standing in front of an important decision right now. Sometimes the right story arrives at exactly the right moment.